Ngay đó. Tỉnh một cổ đó, là các bạn nhá. Đấy, ngay đây. Không. Cái này nhiều nhá. Xem nào. Còn đây. Ngon. Khá là chín nhá.
Oh my God, honey, this is amazing. Honey is so good.
Woo!
Climbing dangerous tall trees to harvest wild honey. High above the ground, where fear tightens its grip on most human beings, there are men who climb without hesitation. No ropes, no modern safety gear, no second chances. This is not a sport. This is not a stunt. This is survival, tradition, and mastery over fear. In remote forests where civilization fades and nature rules without compromise, towering trees rise like living monuments. Some stretch over 30 meters into the sky, their trunks smooth, vertical, and unforgiving. At their highest points, hidden among branches and shadows, lies a treasure both ancient and dangerous: wild honey. But reaching it requires facing one of humanity's most primal fears, the fear of heights, a world above the ground. For most people, the forest is experienced from below, walking between trees, looking up at their crowns, feeling small beneath their size. But for traditional honey harvesters, the forest is a vertical world. They do not see trees as obstacles, they see them as pathways. Each trunk tells a story: where to grip, where to place a foot, where danger waits. These climbers have learned to read trees the way sailors read the sea. A slight curve in the bark, a change in texture, a scar left by time, all of it matters. One mistake at this height does not forgive. The value of wild honey. Wild honey is not like the honey found on supermarket shelves. It is raw, untamed, and deeply connected to the ecosystem it comes from. Bees build their hives high above predators, choosing the tallest trees as their sanctuary. This honey carries the essence of the forest, the flowers, the seasons, the climate. In many cultures, it is believed to have medicinal properties, spiritual significance, and superior nutritional value. But nature never gives without asking something in return. And what nature demands here is courage. The battle against fear. Fear of heights is not weakness, it is biology. The human brain is designed to keep us alive, and heights signal danger. When the climber looks down, the body reacts instantly. Accelerated heartbeat, tense muscles, shallow breathing. Every instinct screams, "Stop, get down." But these climbers have learned something extraordinary. They do not eliminate fear, they control it. Through years of experience, their minds become disciplined. They focus on the next movement, the next grip, the next breath. There is no room for distraction, no space for panic. Up there, fear is acknowledged, but never allowed to lead. A climb with no safety net. Modern climbers rely on harnesses, ropes, helmets, and backups. Traditional honey hunters rely on something else entirely: their bodies and their judgment. Bare hands grip rough bark, feet press against narrow natural footholds. Sometimes simple handmade tools are used, wooden pegs or vines tied around the trunk, but often it is just skin against wood. Every movement must be precise, every decision must be final. There is no pause button when your body is suspended in midair. A dangerous partnership with nature. Reaching the hive is only half the challenge. At the top, thousands of bees wait, fiercely protective, aggressive, and willing to defend their home at all costs. The hum grows louder, the air vibrates with warning. Stings are inevitable, yet these climbers remain calm. They understand bee behavior, the rhythm of the hive, the moments when bees are less aggressive. Some use smoke made from forest plants, not to harm but to temporarily disorient. This is not domination over nature, this is negotiation. tradition passed through generations. These skills are not learned from books or videos. They are passed down from father to son, elder to apprentice. Children grow up watching, listening, absorbing knowledge long before they ever climb. By the time they attempt their first ascent, fear has already been introduced and understood. In many communities, climbing for honey is a rite of passage, a test of maturity, responsibility, and trust. Success earns respect. Failure teaches humility. The tree becomes a teacher. One slip from disaster. The danger is constant. A sudden gust of wind, a loose patch of bark, a tired muscle. Any of these can turn a successful climb into tragedy. There are no emergency services deep in the forest, no helicopters, no second attempts. This is why preparation matters. The climber studies the tree before touching it, the angle, the height, the condition. Nothing is rushed. Patience is as important as strength. Why this still exists today. In a world of drones, machines, and industrial farming, why do people still climb trees like this? Because some traditions refuse to disappear, because wild honey cannot be harvested by machines without destroying the ecosystem, and because for these communities, this is not just food, it is identity. And because there is something profoundly human about facing fear directly, climbing higher than comfort allows, and returning with something earned through risk. A story worth telling. This is more than a climb. It is a story of balance between fear and focus, danger and discipline, humans and nature. Each ascent is a reminder of what the human body and mind can achieve when trained by necessity rather than convenience. As the climber begins his descent, honey secured, body marked with stings and sweat, the forest returns to silence. Another challenge completed, another story written high above the ground. The mental strength behind extreme tree climbing. Fear of heights is one of the most common human fears, deeply rooted in survival instinct. The human brain is programmed to recognize height as danger, triggering anxiety, dizziness, and hesitation. Yet for extreme tree climbers, especially those who harvest wild honey from towering trees, fear becomes something to be mastered rather than avoided. These climbers are not fearless. They feel the same rush of adrenaline, the same tightening of the chest, the same instinct to stop and retreat. The difference lies in how they respond. Instead of allowing fear to control their actions, they learn to work alongside it. Mental strength begins long before the climb itself. Preparation is a psychological ritual. The climber studies the tree from the ground, visualizing each movement, each grip, each step upward. This mental rehearsal reduces uncertainty, and uncertainty is the fuel of fear. Once the climb begins, focus becomes everything. There is no room for panic when the body is suspended meters above the ground. Climbers train their minds to narrow attention to the present moment, one hand, one foot, one breath at a time. Looking down is avoided, not out of denial, but out of discipline. Breathing plays a critical role. Slow, controlled breaths help stabilize the nervous system, keeping the heart rate steady and the muscles responsive. Panic leads to stiffness. Calm leads to precision. Over time, repeated exposure reshapes the brain itself. What once triggered overwhelming fear becomes familiar. Confidence grows, not from arrogance, but from experience. Each successful climb reinforces trust in the body, in judgment, and in the tree. Another powerful mental tool is acceptance. These climbers understand the risks completely. They do not pretend danger does not exist. Instead, they accept it as part of the task. This acceptance removes the internal conflict between fear and action, allowing clarity to replace hesitation. Cultural upbringing also plays a role. In many traditional communities, children grow up watching elders climb. Heights are normalized. Fear is acknowledged but never dramatized. The mind learns early that fear is not a signal to stop, but a signal to focus. Perhaps the most remarkable aspect is respect. Climbers respect the height, the tree, and the consequences. This respect sharpens awareness and prevents reckless behavior. Overconfidence is considered more dangerous than fear itself. In the end, Conquering the fear of heights is not about eliminating fear, it is about transforming it. Fear becomes a guide, not an enemy, a reminder to move carefully, to stay present, to remain humble. High above the ground, where the margin for error is thin, mental strength becomes the strongest tool a climber possesses, stronger than muscle, stronger than courage. Tree climbing techniques used by traditional honey hunters. To climb a towering tree without modern equipment is not an act of recklessness, it is a science learned through experience. Traditional honey hunters move vertically with a precision that appears almost unreal to the untrained eye. Every motion is intentional. Every pause has a reason. The climb begins at the base, where the hunter carefully examines the trunk, the texture of the bark, its moisture, the presence of insects or rot. All are evaluated. A healthy tree offers grip, a damaged one invites disaster. Unlike sport climbers who rely on ropes, these hunters use their bodies as the primary tool. Arms pull, legs push, and the torso stays close to the trunk to maintain balance. Keeping the body aligned reduces strain and prevents sudden shifts that could lead to a fall. One of the most important techniques is rhythm. Climbing is not rushed. It follows a steady pattern. Grip, step, breathe. Breaking this rhythm leads to fatigue, and fatigue leads to mistakes. Experienced climbers know when to pause, allowing muscles to recover while maintaining constant contact with the tree. In some regions, simple aids are used. Wooden pegs are hammered into the trunk, or loops made from natural fiber are wrapped around the tree and the climber's waist. These tools are not safety nets, they are extensions of the climber's technique, offering stability rather than protection. Foot placement is critical. The climber presses the inner edge of the foot against the bark, using friction rather than footholds. Toes remain flexible, adapting to the tree's surface. A stiff foot is a dangerous foot. Hands do not grip blindly. They search for imperfections, small ridges, knots, or natural cracks. The skin hardens over time, building resistance and sensitivity at once. Pain is expected. Injury is avoided. As the height increases, the wind becomes a factor. The tree sways, sometimes subtly, sometimes dramatically. Instead of fighting the movement, skilled climbers move with it. Resistance creates imbalance. Adaptation creates control. What makes these techniques remarkable is their efficiency. No movement is wasted. No energy is spent unnecessarily. The climber conserves strength for the most dangerous part, the moment near the hive. This mastery of vertical movement is not taught in classrooms. It is learned through repetition, observation, and respect for gravity. High above the ground, technique becomes survival, and survival becomes art. Dangerous encounters with wild bees at extreme heights. Reaching the top of the tree does not mean that danger is over. In many ways, it has only just begun. High above the forest floor, clinging to a narrow trunk or swaying branch, the climber comes face to face with the hive. Thousands of wild bees surround it, alert, defensive, and prepared to attack at the first sign of threat. At this height, there is no escape route, no place to run. Wild bees are far more aggressive than domesticated ones. Their hive is their life, and they will defend it relentlessly. The sound alone is intimidating, a deep, vibrating hum that fills the air, growing louder as the climber approaches. It is a warning. Fear must be controlled instantly. Experienced honey hunters understand bee behavior. They know that sudden movements trigger aggression. Calm, slow actions reduce it. Every gesture is deliberate. Every second is calculated. In many traditions, smoke is used, not to harm the bees, but to confuse them. Smoke disrupts their communication, reducing their ability to coordinate an attack. It buys the climber time, but only a little. The margin for error remains razor thin. Protective suits are rarely used. Often the climber's skin is exposed. Stings are expected. Pain is accepted. What matters is maintaining balance while under attack. A sudden reaction to a sting can cause a fatal slip. At this height, the body is already under extreme stress. Muscles burn, hands tremble. The mind fights to remain focused as bees swarm around the face, arms, and neck. Vision blurs, breathing becomes difficult. And yet, the work continues. The hive must be handled carefully. Destroying it would mean no future harvest and damage to the ecosystem. Skilled hunters remove only what is needed, leaving the colony alive. This balance between taking and preserving is critical. Time is the enemy. The longer the climber stays, the more aggressive the bees become. Efficiency is survival. Every motion must be quick but controlled. precise but gentle. When the honey is finally secured, the climber does not celebrate. Celebration comes later, on the ground. Now, there is only one goal: descent. With bees still circling, muscles exhausted, and gravity pulling downward, the climber begins the most dangerous phase of all: the return. Facing the hive is not just a physical challenge, it is a test of mental endurance, pain tolerance, and respect for nature's power. Few humans ever experience such a confrontation, and fewer still walk away carrying honey. Extreme risk, injuries, and survival without safety gear. Every climb carries a silent question: will the climber return safely? There are no guarantees in this world. No helmets, no harnesses, no emergency plans. Survival depends entirely on skill, awareness, and respect for danger. The risks are constant and unforgiving. A single misstep can send a body falling from terrifying heights. A weakened branch can snap without warning. Sweat can reduce grip. Fatigue can slow reaction time. In this environment, even small mistakes become fatal. Injuries are not rare, they are expected. Cuts from bark, deep bruises, strained muscles, and swollen joints are part of the job. Bee stings add another layer of suffering, sometimes numbering in the dozens. Pain is not treated as a reason to stop, but as information, a signal to move carefully, not emotionally. There is no safety gear to absorb impact or stop a fall. The climber's body must become its own protection. Strength matters, but balance matters more. Flexibility, coordination, and body awareness are what keep a climber alive. What makes these risks even more severe is isolation. These climbs often happen deep in forests, far from roads or medical help. If something goes wrong, help may be hours or days away. The climber understands this before ever touching the tree. This is why experience is everything. Older climbers teach younger ones not just how to climb, but when not to climb. Weather conditions, physical condition, and even emotional state are considered. Overconfidence is viewed as dangerous ignorance. Survival also depends on knowing personal limits. Experienced hunters know when to descend early, even if honey is within reach. Walking away is not failure. It is wisdom earned through close encounters with disaster. Despite the danger, these climbers return again and again, not because they ignore risk, but because they accept it fully. Risk becomes part of daily life, managed through discipline rather than denial. This way of life exists on the edge between courage and caution. Those who survive long enough understand that the goal is not to prove bravery, but to return home. In the end, the greatest skill is not climbing higher. It is knowing how to come back alive. Why extreme honey harvesting still endures. In a world dominated by technology, machines, and convenience, some traditions refuse to disappear. High in remote forests, far from paved roads and modern safety standards, extreme honey harvesting continues, not as a spectacle, but as a way of life. This practice has survived for centuries, passed down through generations who understood the forest not as a resource to be exploited, but as a partner to be respected. Long before industrial beekeeping, humans climbed trees in silence, guided by instinct, knowledge, and trust in their own abilities. For these communities, harvesting wild honey is more than collecting food. It is identity, it is heritage, it is proof that humans can coexist with nature without dominating it. Every climb honors the wisdom of ancestors who learned through trial, error, and sacrifice. Modern tools could make this process safer, but they would also change its meaning. Ropes and machines would remove the human element, the skill, the judgment, the courage that defines the tradition. What looks dangerous from the outside is, from within, a carefully balanced system shaped by experience. There is also an environmental reason this tradition endures. Wild honey harvesting, when done responsibly, preserves the ecosystem. The bees are not destroyed. The hive is respected. Only a portion of the honey is taken, ensuring the colony survives and the forest remains alive. In an age of instant rewards, this practice demands patience. It reminds us that not everything valuable comes easily. Some rewards must be earned through effort, discipline, and risk. For the climber, the descent marks the end of one journey, but not the end of the story. Back on the ground, honey is shared, stories are told, and lessons are passed on. The scars become reminders, the experience becomes knowledge. These climbers are not chasing danger, they're preserving balance between tradition and progress, between fear and mastery. between humanity and nature. As the forest returns to silence, the towering trees stand unchanged, waiting for the next generation to climb them. And as long as there are those willing to face the heights, this ancient tradition will endure, high above the ground, where courage meets respect.
Rồi giờ mình chuẩn bị xuống không rồi.